right, long story short, the most painful cave deaths ever. Now, I don't know what possesses people to adventure Mother Nature's chamber. Is that what we're calling the caves? Mother Nature's chamber of torture?
Joseph Lister, along with 10 classmates, including his friends Charlie and Amy.
Wait, schools are taking kids schools are taking kids cave diving?
The Manchester Hole tragedy. In November 2005, 14-year-old Joseph Lister, along with 10 classmates, including his friends Charlie and Amy from his school, his math teacher, and a 17-year-old caver volunteer who knew the cave system well, decided to explore the Nidderdale Caves.
Is that the real cave? Because that actually looks beautiful. If that's the real cave picture, that does look sexy. I'm not gonna lie to you, like.
North Yorkshire, England. The cave system is famous for its 20 entrances, and the group chose to enter through Manchester Hole, a small opening in the ground that leads to a huge cave. They descended through a hole into a massive chamber, about the size of a football field, with a few inches of water on the floor and a 50-foot-high ceiling hung with stalactites. After passing through, they entered a tunnel and climbed down a muddy path into a second, smaller chamber that still held all 11.
Alright, I don't think no one's gonna die in this clip. The cave is way too big. 20 entrances. A football field size, cafeteria, food court, what the fuck?
Students and had
somebody probably is gonna
the
like.
Tunnel then narrowed sharply.
If somebody does die, God forbid, they're probably gonna die by like hitting their head.
A muddy stream soaked their clothes,
but so
led to
far,
a small chamber.
Okay, I know I'm talking a lot, but so far, the mud part is scaring me. I'm hearing a lot of muddy. Then they went into the muddy, then the muddy, so that's not a good sign.
And again, the math
mud and water is not a good sign. And rocks, mud, rock, and water.
The guide became very worried because the water level was much higher than usual. Something he.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, oh my gosh, they wait until the last second. I don't know, man. Like, at what point do you think that something's wrong?
Even though it was cold and windy outside, there was no forecast of rain. Everyone was standing in freezing water. Their boots were filled with water, and there was hardly any space to move. To make matters worse, the water kept rising, soon reaching above the knees of some students. The guide, confused by the sudden flooding, knew they had to get out quickly, so they decided to retreat. The math teacher went first, followed by the students, one by one, taking the small passage back to the previous chamber. At one point...
This is how they have to crawl back? Like this? No.
The teacher and 9 of the students were inside the tunnel when a sudden surge of cold water flooded the chamber. The guide, along with Amy and Joseph, were the last to exit the chamber and enter the tunnel. The tunnel was crowded with students struggling against the rising water.
God,
realizing the danger, the guide, Amy, and Joseph went back to the previous chamber to catch their breath. But the water kept rising, and they were nearly submerged.
Wait, how is the water rising but it's not raining? Is this Duppy Man's cave?
Taking
they said there's no rain, right?
The tunnel. This time, the tunnel was clear enough for them to move. The guide led the way, with Amy and Joseph
he has to hold his breath?
In the previous chamber,
you have to...
the guide pushed Amy out to safety, but Joseph never made it out.
No.
The water continued to rise, even in the chamber. The guide tried to go back for Joseph, but the math teacher insisted on taking the other 10 students to safety. Tragically, Joseph...
What the fuck is the math teacher doing in the cave? Why is the math teacher the first nigga out the cave?
Drowned in the narrow tunnel where there was no
fuck
air.
Joseph, R.I.P. Joseph.
The group went to the surface to alert emergency personnel, and they emerged under a blue sky with strong winds, but not a single drop of rain.
Not a single drop of rain.
That strong winds had blown water out of the nearby Scar House Reservoir that day. Thousands of gallons of water were forced into the river below, causing it to rise 4 feet in just 1 hour. This surge of water drained directly into the cave system. Normally, water slowly trickles through and seeps into the groundwater, but that day the huge volume overwhelmed the cave's ability to drain, triggering flash flooding throughout the system in just a few minutes. Cave rescuers arrived within 20 minutes after being called. By then, the water had already receded to below their knees. They found the lifeless body of Joseph Lister in the narrow tunnel before the final chamber. Neil Moss incident.
So the instructor, he didn't pre the situation off the get-go? He didn't say like, yo, I don't know, man.
It was Sunday, March.
And what happened to the 20 exits and entrances? What the fuck?
1959. When
and the football field cave.
Student Oscar Neil Moss, along with 7 other people, 4 of whom were part of the British cave.
And what happened to the other people? You just gonna talk about Joseph dying? R.I.P. Joseph.
Association.
That's a little
decided
baby
to
that
visit
died.
Peak
Cave
Cavern
diving
in the
'cause of
village
school.
Castleton, Derbyshire. The cave system was well known. However, 2 weeks earlier, the same 4 BCA explorers had discovered a new fissure in a side chamber that was 1,000 feet deep. The 8 explorers entered the cave system in the afternoon. They were equipped with ropes, lamps, helmets,
In the
and other necessary
afternoon, no,
gear.
no, I know. I'm kind of delayed on that. No. We're going cave diving in the morning, sunrise. As soon as sunset hits, we're hopping in that cave. Why? Because in case, God forbid, they have the whole afternoon to try to help us. They have the whole evening, and then they have the whole sunset, and then nighttime. But if you go evening, afternoon, chances are they're not coming for you. They're
Upon
gonna be like,
entering,
yo,
they
I
discovered
finished
the
my shift
Mucky
soon.
Ducks section, a wet squeeze tunnel that was frequently flooded after rain. This led them to the Boulder Passage, an easier section where they could stand upright while descending and maneuver around various obstructions. Approximately 493 feet into the passage, a 10-feet climb on the north wall of the upper gallery awaited them. High above the steep, muddy
A 10 feet climb. That means that's a 10 feet crawl back down. I don't- what goes up must come down.
slopes was Pickering Passage.
Look at this. They have to crawl and then rope their way down here. Now, how the do you get back? I don't know, man. I think people think like when you go cave diving and you reach the end, it's gonna be a cut scene and then you're gonna spawn back outside. That's what I think.
A long, narrow crawl space where you had to stretch
it's
your
a
whole
long,
body to
narrow
move through.
crawl
It
space?
concluded with an awkward bend and a muddy sump.
I just
Above
talked
the
about
eye hole,
that.
just large enough to accommodate a human body, laid the next challenge. It led to a thigh-deep, muddy pool that
A thigh deep muddy pool that you're gonna have to go back in and climb back up in with all that mud and slipperiness on you. This is Diddy's cave.
chamber, a vast, beautiful part of the cave filled with stalagmites, with a ceiling high enough for a
I mean,
person
shit,
to
they're
stand
in good spirits. So who am I to judge them?
upright. Despite their fatigue, they approached
They're
the
all
newly
smiling.
discovered fissure in the ground. The shaft measured around 3.2 feet by 2.3 feet. None had ventured all the way down there, but it was estimated to be at least 40 feet deep. To be safe, they decided to deploy a 250 feet climbing ladder, and Neil volunteered to go down. He started to descend around 3:30 p.m., pushing the ladder before continuing. He went down 12 feet when he met his first challenge, the corkscrew twist. He succeeded in pushing himself into a 10-foot-long, slightly inclined passageway, and then crawled through it, pushing the ladder as he went. Afterwards, he came face to face with a vertical passageway 18 feet deep, a section none had ventured into before. Throughout his descent, he maintained constant communication with his
Bro, you made it. Okay, go. Now go back up.
team above. Excited, Moss dropped further down the tunnel, but unfortunately, he met a boulder there. He knew he couldn't continue
I'm so
descending,
sorry. Did I
so
hurt
he
you?
decided to climb
I'm so
back
sorry,
up.
baby. Did I hurt
Unfortunately,
you?
Moss
It's
found
just that
himself
Moss is
unable
kinda
to lift his
pissing me
feet
off.
sufficiently
He made
to
it to
ascend
the
the ladder. He
end.
became trapped in an elliptical crevice only
He
18
made it to
inches
the
wide.
end
He called out
and
for
wanted to go
assistance, and
deeper.
despite efforts
Did
to
the
lift him by
cave
pulling
say
on the
go
ladder,
deeper?
it became
Go
jammed
deeper.
between the
Did the cave
cave
say that to you?
surface
No,
and
they
his
didn't.
body. Ropes were lowered to help
Now
him,
you're
but
stuck,
every time they
Moss.
tried to pull him up, they either snapped or got cut by the sharp edge of the rock. His body ended up blocking air
gosh.
from getting into the shaft, so he needed to be rescued immediately before he ran out of oxygen. Some of the cavers left to seek more help. Within a few hours, hundreds of volunteers from
Oh,
across
shit, the
England,
Avengers
along
put
with the
up.
Royal Air Force, police,
Oh,
and even
shit,
the
the
Navy
Air Force,
joined
the
the rescue
military,
efforts.
FBI?
Just a few hours after Moss became trapped in the shaft, the rescuers encountered another obstacle. By this time, the air in the shaft had become polluted by carbon dioxide. Moss became disoriented because of it, and he began behaving irrationally. Witnesses said that he wasn't helping at all, that he didn't seem to care about how serious the situation was, and that he even told the rescuers to take a break to get something to eat. Experienced cavers were sent down the shaft to rescue
That's
Moss,
the
but one
drugs
by one,
kicking in.
they were forced back by the toxic air. 3 of the volunteers even lost
hold on,
consciousness.
pause. If they're coming in from fresh air, wait, hold on. Just hear me out. Let me move you closer. If they're coming in from fresh air and the toxic air is so bad that they have to come out of that air, the person sitting in here is no longer with us. That nigga mutated into the Green Goblin. Clearly, he's telling you go take a break, boys. This is Dupimon's cave. I'm not.
Finally, the 4th volunteer, Ron Peters, managed to
The
secure a rope
spirit
around
of
Moss's
this
chest
cave
and
is
began to
telling
pull.
you guys,
However, he
boys, go
soon
take a
realized
break.
that this only worsened Moss's breathing difficulties.
Like,
The
I
Royal
don't get
Air
it.
Force brought oxygen tanks to ventilate the shaft, and although the quality of air was marginally
look at his
improved, it
face.
proved to be insufficient. The next morning, 18-year-old June Bailey arrived and suggested breaking Neil's
Next
collarbone to help
morning,
rescue him.
niggas.
However,
if I'm, God forbid, if I'm ever in a cave and niggas say, yeah, don't worry, next morning we're gonna send in professional help. What? You might as well just let me die.
The toxic
Fuck you
air
mean next
stopped
morning?
all their efforts, and they had to turn back. By Monday afternoon, roughly 24
He's
hours
dead.
after Moss entered the cave, he was still breathing, but it started to rain, and the entire cave
Are they
was
feeding him at least? Are they? I don't hear nobody throwing him a granola bar.
evacuated as a precaution. When it stopped, the rescuers went
How
back
is he
to the shaft.
alive though? How is Moss still alive? They're going in the cave from fresh air. They can't take it, so they're leaving it. He's in there for 24 hours. Are you hearing me? They can't take it for 10 minutes, for 5 minutes. He's in there for 24 hours. That's, I don't know.
Accompanied by a Royal Air Force doctor. They
A
did not hear
Royal Air Force doctor.
sound.
They sent
Moss
him
was
the
not
Queen's
breathing,
doctor.
and he was
the
declared
Queen's.
dead on Tuesday, March 24th, 1959. Throughout the ordeal, Moss's father, Eric Moss, stayed at the entrance and asked that his son's body remain where it was to avoid risking further injury or loss of life during the rescue.
No,
the
someone
shaft
else
was
died?
sealed with rocks from the stalagmite chamber. That chamber, which held the shaft,
If none of your friends have told you about the skip
Yeah, I
forever
keep
button,
seeing this girl.
those
That
aren't your
shit trying to
friends.
fuck
This
me. Like, yo, what's good? Just let me know. You don't gotta see all this extra shit in the ads.
his final resting place, the Manatee Springs Cave diving tragedy. On March 14th, 2022, a couple of friends, William and Harry, and their respective fathers, George and Jack, decided to visit the Manatee Springs State Park in Florida to do some cave diving. At Manatee Springs State Park, divers need to have full cave diving certification and must dive with a partner who has previous diving experience at Manatee in order to access the cave area.
Yeah, one
All four
thing I-
divers had only the intro to cave diving certification, not the full one. The Manatee Springs system is
I'll
known
let
for
him
its
cook
four
first.
entry points: Manatee Springs, mainly for open water divers; Catfish Hotel, Sue's Sink, and Freedman's Sink. The cave
All right, let me tell you the real names. Dopimon dead. You soon die. Come here and die. I dare you, bitch. Continue.
tunnels below these points extend for thousands of feet, but only Freedman's Sink and Catfish Hotel have an entrance pool for cave divers. The
I
system
think that's what. Which one was this again? Come here and die, bitch. I think that was. And this one's try me, bitch. I think so. Yeah.
is called a siphon because water flows like a river from a distant entry point and naturally comes out at Manatee Springs. Due to this flow, cave divers typically enter at one point and exit
try me,
downstream
bitch.
at another. This type of dive, known as a traverse, is more challenging because divers must know two pathways instead of just one. Entering a siphon and a traverse system was only allowed for full certified cave divers. Regardless, they decided to enter the system at Freedman's Sink and planned to exit at Catfish Hotel. They started their dive at 11:17 a.m. Each dive
Wait, if they started at try me, bitch, and die, aren't they gonna flow this way and then end their trip early? So if they go in from try me, bitch, and die, and they go swim that way, I don't know. Because this
diver
cave
equipped with
system
two
seems
air
kind of
tanks, both
simple.
built to 3,800
It doesn't really seem like a
psi.
cave you could
Since
die
the tunnels
in.
were about 100 feet deep, roughly 4 atmospheres of pressure, the air was compressed to 1/4 of its original volume and consumed at 4 times the surface rate.
Yo, is this
They all
math?
carried
What are you-
both
what are you telling me
primary
right now?
and Backup light sources.
Just
as well as
break
dive
it down and
computers to
say,
track their depth, heart
if
rate,
you go that
movement,
high, you're
and
dead. If you go this high, you're super
William and
dead.
Harry had a GoPro in their head. to
Oh,
document
no, they had a
the entire
GoPro?
dive. William and Harry took the lead, with their dads following closely behind. The gentle pull of the water from Freedman's Sink helped them cover the 1,700 feet distance to Catfish Hotel. After the first 900 feet, they came to an exit line at Sue's Sink. A rope tied to a rock marked the spot, and light from the surface was seeping into the tunnel. This exit was meant for emergencies only, because it wasn't set up for divers, but for campers. Their planned exit,
What?
Catfish Hotel,
What?
was 700 feet away.
What? It wasn't made for divers, made for camper. What? An emergency exit in the water isn't made for divers, made for campers? I'm so confused.
They kept diving and eventually reached the end of the route near Manatee Springs, but they couldn't see the exit line to Catfish Hotel. Confused, they started searching for any light coming from above, but found nothing. Fathers and sons teamed up and decided to return by following the line.
But the current. Watch the current.
At that moment, George had 3,000 psi of air remaining, which was enough to exit safely. However, the return trip turned out to be more difficult than expected.
Yep,
they were
'cause-
moving against
'cause the current.
so their air consumption increased rapidly as their breathing rate went up. Finally, George spotted the exit at Sue's Sink and noticed light leaking from the surface.
Amen.
George and his son William emerged from the system.
And then when they looked behind
However,
them,
their friends didn't make it out. Something had gone wrong. William wanted to dive back down to find
Boy, he
Harry
had no
and Jack,
air.
but George insisted on calling 911 instead. Harry and Jack had apparently missed the exit at Sue's Sink. Their lighting equipment washed out the natural light leaking from the surface, and boulders further blocked it. So they
I don't
didn't see
get
the
it.
exit.
Aren't they not swimming in groups though? Like, how do you miss 2 people in front of you and then 2 people going up? I don't know. And I don't know.
They continued diving desperately for another 20 minutes, searching for any exit. Finally, Harry spotted the light at Friedman's sink. Rushing ahead along the guideline, he looked back to see his dad's camera light following him. Harry managed to exit the system at 12:20 p.m. with one tank completely empty and the other below 1,500 psi. But his father, Jack, did not emerge.
And just like what I said too, like, how do you go from a group of 4 to a group of 2, and then a group of 2, you 2, and then you leave your dad? I'm not even my dad. I'm not even my grandpa. I'm not even nobody. You're swimming in front of me. And you're trying to say, especially if you're an old head, like if you're an old head, you have to swim in front of me because you're weaker.
Sink, and they talked about why they had missed the exit at Catfish Hotel. They later realized there was no upline leading to Catfish Hotel. Deep inside the cave, they could see light from the surface, but it was partly blocked by a 10-foot deep passage arranged in a double L shape, a detail they wouldn't have known without prior experience. In fact, many divers enter through Catfish Hotel and exit at Friedman's Sink because it's easier, even though they have to dive against the current. Cave rescuers arrived around 12:50 p.m. and found Jack's lifeless body just 100 feet from the exit at Friedman's Sink.
You see what I mean? You see what I mean? 100 feet from the exit. If you were just patient, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You know, in the moment, some people aren't built for the moment. Some people aren't ready for the moment. But the moment. If you just held to your dad's hand, just followed him, just went behind him, 100 feet, my nigga. You know what 100 feet is? 100 feet is like here to the kitchen. Like 100 feet. That's
Both of his tanks were completely empty. He had traveled 3,400 feet through the system and ran out of air in the last 100 feet. His final movement was recorded at 12:17 p.m., just 3 minutes before his son surfaced and 17 minutes after his friends surfaced at Sue's sink. If you liked this video,
he could have lived.